come back to the war. People came home, had a lot of wealth, GI Bill, went to school. The country was coming out of the Depression. We had had two bad periods. We had the Depression, we had the war. People couldn't wait to get away from other folks. They began to separate and segregate themselves by race into suburbs. And TV is segregated, but here come some young people who feel something is wrong. They want to be integrated. They begin to follow a form of music performed by integrated doo-wop groups. And here come some white musicians from the country in the South like Elvis Presley, who had grown up with black folks, and people like Chuck Berry, who possessed an integrated sound and style, and it was called rock and roll. And the kids loved it because they could express a national desire to be free of the hypocrisy of segregation and all the repression that we had come to embrace. Moving away from the spirit of the jazz age and the swing era, we had begun to curl into a ball of fear after the Depression and the war. Those kids took their disposable income and created the first kid culture the world had ever seen. It presaged a revolution, but the largest segment of the population by this time had forgotten how to dance. It's time for us to remember what it feels like to be a nation of real dancers. That's just a small part of what our music reveals about our identity. And the generation gap served us well in the 1950s to create social change and sell recordings. But now, in 2012, this concept has not fared well against the passage of time. I'm suggesting that the generation gap with kids being hipper than adults is a farce, and it doesn't serve us well. I'm suggesting that music is one of the principal carriers of this outmoded way of thinking, and as it liberated kids in the 50s and 60s, it now enslaves. Today, we're in desperate need of a discerning body of listeners. I'm saying music instructors seem, to me, should be the arbiters of taste for the community. We're trained in music. We're qualified to lead the ascendancy of our community's engagement with music. Why are we following people who don't know anything about music at all? But we must first educate and demand more from ourselves. When we discover the best of what our musical arts have created, we're going to become angry. And that anger fuels a desire to create a better world for our families, students, and countries. That intensity of emotion causes us to adopt an aggressive insistence on quality. And quality always attracts and holds the interest of those who realize that they've been exploited by mediocrity. In 2012, the realization of this exploitation will create a desire for a more truthful and harmonious way, more harmonious between the generations, between the sexes, and the ethnic groups, all of whom have been callously stereotyped and exploited by the marketplace and delivered directly to unsuspecting kids through music. And even if we even recognize it, because many times it's so commonplace, we don't recognize it. We, instructors, teachers, parents, are left to pick up the pieces and demand change. Or we always can just play whatever is popular regardless of quality and call it a day. It's much easier. You won't get bad reviews. But we are the academy. We are the teachers, the leaders. We're supposed to be those who know. Our nation is in a cultural crisis, and this crisis compels us to call for a new type of American musicianship. One that encompasses more of the truth of our musical journey on this land. Then, and only then, can we create more support for the arts in successive generations. More support in our schools, deeper parental engagement, and an elevation of national consciousness to the point that no parent ever has to fight against unwinnable odds for funding of a music program at their local school. I see a time when the very best of our American arts led by music are studied, performed, viewed, and treasured by communities of all hues, persuasions, and means, integrated by their love and knowledge of our mutual heritage. A lot of dues have already been paid, and it's so much deeper than notes. But this transformation will not be free of charge, oh no. The body of melodies, songs, and pieces that transcend all barriers has already been created. I don't know why we don't want to know them, because they're not going to be reinvented. It will cost us our contemporary comfort zone. And let us remember, when we think about the cost and the benefit, let's remember all of the people who invested in our education, and realize that we're endowed by their very investment with the skills to create a richer world than they could have ever possibly envisioned. This is our inheritance. This is our charge. It is the weight of our ancestors and the super realization of the dreams of our mentors. As I grow older, I reflect on the many great teachers and mentors I have had, and I consider actually less the technical stuff that they taught me and the technical advice, or practice this scale or exercise. I'm always around kids and they're asking me, what did you do when you were 13? Or what did you do when you were 14? Or what did you do when you were 16? As I grow older, I tend to dwell more on what my teachers wanted to see in the world through their involvement with young people in the sacred art of music.